The Chicago Cubs busted out the whooping six against the Colorado Rockies, while the Chicago White Sox, well, they got busted by the Kansas City Royals. Are you surprised? I'm not. In basketball, the Chicago Bulls, can we just end this pain, Lakina? Can we? Can we? And in college basketball, the women's Final Four tips out tonight, while the men will take center stage tomorrow. That and a whole lot more as the first Friday show for the month of April on Second City Sports starts right now. Welcome to this first Friday edition of Second City Sports for the month of April. We're live in 11 color on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss McKinley Gee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keita McGee on the Twitter, X, and here's going to get the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago rather on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions to our extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can always hit us up and find us at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I'll give Lakina full powers to give you fools to be able to be a boot.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color on Roku TV. That's right. So celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just click on that sports folder and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, or your Android, just hit up the Google Play Store and download that Roku TV app and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will provide you with some of the best here on the first Friday of April here on Second City Sports. I know it's a little bit rainy in some parts of the country, but we're going to try to keep it warm here. You bring the spring in our step here. We got our buddy Mike Chen, college sports blogger. We'll preview the men's national championship with some coaching changes, some interesting coaching changes that happened over the week. We'll talk to him about that. Plus, of course, Bulls, they lose to Atlanta. Okay. And the rest of the...
Did it actually happen?
Yeah, as we're getting out to the wire here in the NBA, and excuse me, and also too, of course, we'll talk baseball, and as the Cubs beat the Rockies handily, while the Sox kind of a mixed bag for the Sox as usual. I think it's going to be a theme here all season long for them. Okay, but first we want to give out our, keep, stay safe out there. Thoughts and prayers go out to the folks over in New York City and Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as a 4.8 earthquake hit in those areas, just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, I was doing some grocery shopping around that time, Lakina. I didn't get any notifications until my guys, of course, from the whole War Media, D and David show crew. And a couple of them texted and said, earthquake 4.8 in New Jersey. I was like, what? I didn't want to believe it. So I was walking home from the grocery store, and then I turned on the TV, the Weather Channel, Fox News, all the major news stations. Yeah, it was true. A 4.8 earthquake felt throughout New Jersey, New York City, parts of Pennsylvania, as you mentioned. And I heard as far as Boston, you get they felt the little after effects of it as well. Now, aftershock just occurred about 45 minutes ago, obviously before we went on air. So, no further damage as far as we know, no casualties as far as we know. So, like Lakina said, hopefully everybody stays safe out there in the area. I know, even though this is a less of importance, but the New York Yankees are having their home opener. They're playing right now against the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll have more on that coming up, but looks like no other shocks as we know has been reported than the one I just mentioned about that occurred about 45 minutes ago. So we want everybody to stay safe and stay aware, check on your loved ones, and we can get through this. Now, Lakina, I'm not a meteorologist or anything like that, but I was watching the Weather Channel. One of the weathermen said that it's not the first time that we had an East Coast type earthquake before, but it's rare because of the atmosphere things along that line. You typically hear about those in Asian countries, and of course here in the United States on the West Coast, like California, in particular, Oregon, the upper Washington State, and some of those areas, but you rarely experience it on the East Coast. I just found it to be very interesting. And we talked about this before the show, Lakina. Remember about, I think, 8 to 10 years ago, for those of you who live in the Chicagoland area, Illinois, state of Illinois, I think it was about 8 to 10 years ago. And I remember waking up that day, like at 4 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes you get waking up by a noise or something like that. I remember hearing a big boom, but I never thought it was like an earthquake. It was right in the middle of winter too. Remember, it was getting all those thunder, snowstorms, and all that other stuff. And then I went back to sleep. It took me about an hour to go back to sleep, but I woke up like a couple hours later, turned on the news. It was like, yeah, it was a small earthquake, but it came from downstate. I was like, wow.
Yeah, I remember that earthquake, and because I thought I was dreaming, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just go back to sleep, and you find the news, and such. A few hours later, that luckily there was no same thing, minimal damage, there was no injuries or anything like that. So that's all good there. I checked over the couple of our guys who live out there, who cover sports out there. Our buddy Twan Staley from the New York Daily News. The center of the earthquake was actually right there where he lives. It's right there in the Jersey area, the New York City, Jersey area. So, but he's all good. Still making jokes. Our buddy Ryan Field from ABC7 New York. He's the chief sports anchor reporter there. He's actually at the game against with the Yankees against the Blue Jays, I should say. So they're all he says they're all good there as well. So it's a little kind of crazy when stuff like this happens. They're kind of like all right, but we won't get into all the political stuff, climate change and all that. But just want to give you our thoughts and prayers, of course. Stay safe out there out in those areas.
Yes. Shout out to our guy Jay Grizz. We see you in the chat right here on our chat line. You could do the same. Just go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. Lakina, tonight is the night. I know we'll get into the men's Final Four in our next hour with our guest Mike Chen, Formula 670 the score here in Chicago, friend of the show. But call me crazy, Lakina. I'm more excited about the women's Final Four tonight than the men's. I know the first game will take place tonight from Cleveland at 6 o'clock Chicago time on ESPN. It's the Battle of the Carolinas, South Carolina versus NC State. But the second game has me more intrigued. Is between Paige Beckers and the UConn Huskies versus Caitlin Clark and the Iowa Hawkeyes. Now, I know what happened on Monday. We talked about Lakina, and we predicted it. It was very easy that was ESPN's highest rated game, women's college basketball game in history, LSU in Iowa. It was a very good game. Of course, Iowa won, and of course now they're in the Final Four. But Lakina, Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark, you could argue that two of the top five women's players, college basketball players in the country. I expect it to be another close contest tonight, Lakina, but it's not going to be easy for Iowa. Someone's got to step up and help out Miss Clark.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I know that Paige Beckers feels a little bit motivated because she feels kind of slighted that all the attention is going on Clark, and that's rightfully so. But also at the same time, look, she's coming back from injury. The fact that UConn's even gotten this far, they're shorthanded. They've lost a lot of players due to injury early on in the season. The fact that they even got to the Final Four, they won the Big East pretty handily, kind of is a testament to her and a lot of the talent that's on that squad. So that we'll be able to see what happens with that. I mean, look, if you're UConn, look, this isn't Gino Auriemma's first rodeo. I think this is his first Final Four in about like 3 years. And this like his 12th, I think. So I think, for me, I think this is sort of one of those things where you just got it's really going to depend on who gets at the pace. If UConn sets the pace early on, get Beckers and her supporting cast involved, and probably try to tame Caitlin Clark. I mean, that's not going to be an easy task. Ask Haley Von Eath that. Now she's transferring from LSU. We'll probably get to that later if we got time. But it's going to be interesting. Like I say, it's really going to depend on the supporting cast. As for the first game, look, I would think South Carolina shouldn't have any trouble with North Carolina State. I mean, I think they'll only steal a few players. And I know that NC State. I mean, this is their first trip since '98. As far as South Carolina, they feel like they're being a little bit overlooked because they're undefeated going into this game. And I think Beckers even said in the press, spread the wealth. So, welcome time, folks. Sorry, all you college basketball fans.
I was going to bring up, you mentioned the teamwork, and I noticed that UConn was doing that. And it was the first time I watched them all year. And when they played LSU USC this past Monday, they shared the ball. They played like a team. On the other side, I was rooting for Juju Watkins on the personal. She had a good game, but the rest of her teammates were MIA, especially during the tough, the latter parts of the fourth quarter. But you mentioned Gino. Gino is a Hall of Fame head coach for UConn. I think we talked about this on our show on Monday, Lakina. No one expected them to get this far. I know they're not as dominant as they were in past years, but they're still a hell of a basketball team. Now, on the flip side for Iowa, like I said, who's going to help out Caitlin Clark tonight? Because it depends on how UConn is going to defend her. So someone's got to step in and step up, and that's what I'm looking forward to in tonight's game.
The defense is going to be a big factor because once they go to zone and let Juju Watkins and some of the other supporting cast of SD just couldn't get it going. And Aaliyah Edwards, I think, is going to be a big factor too for UConn. She got to step up for help out Paige Beckers, and look, because they only go about 7 or 8 deep, talk about UConn. So they're going to have to kind of set the pace and say, okay, you know what, Iowa, okay, we'll let Caitlin Clark get her shots. We're going to have to slow down the rest of the people. And I think that's the thing that LSU did not do on Monday.
Yeah. And also, too, with Paige Beckers, and it was the first time I got a chance to watch her, for all four quarters. I was just amazed that she's a heck of a scorer, but she's also a heck of a playmaker as well. You have to give that same respect to Caitlin Clark as well. We all give her props, obviously, because she can shoot the ball from 35 feet, but she's a heck of a pass as well. Now, back to Paige Beckers for a second. I don't know if you caught her comments following the win over USC last Monday, and like you mentioned, she missed the last 2 years due to injury. She was so humble. She was so comfortable in her own skin. She was truly appreciating the moment, and that's what I like about her, and that's what I respect about her. Besides her talent on the court.
Yeah, she really is. I think she kind of you could probably say she gets it. And you saw her pressure. She's probably one of the most humble athletes you'll probably ever come across. And like you said, she's been gone the last couple of years. Recovered from ACL surgery. So I think, this will be an interesting game tonight. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of betting going on. I know a lot of women's college hoops fans don't want to hear it, but one of the reasons why for this big uptick in popularity is because of the betting. So,
NCAA would say, draw the line.
Exactly. So you can catch both games on ESPN. Of course, first you got NC State and South Carolina. It's going to be at 6. Also streaming on ESPN Plus. Of course, nightcap will be right after that game between UConn and number 1 seed Iowa on ESPN, and also stream on ESPN Plus, so you guys can check it out.
We got to get into baseball, Lakina, both locally and nationally. As I mentioned at the top, the Cubs busted out the whooping sticks against the Colorado Rockies. The Sox got hammered by the Kansas City Royals. We had a no-hitter earlier this week, courtesy of the Houston Astros. And we have a few home openers that are taking place right now and later today. That and a whole lot more as the Friday edition of Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago continues.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class. these colored pencils too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to the Friday edition of Second City Sports. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter. X, okay, let's go get the ID on IG. Sorry.
Yeah, we have less than 85 minutes left of this extravaganza we call a sports talk radio show. Just like our guy Jay Gris has done, you can do the same thing. If you have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments to the comments section. Look in, we'll get them up on the screen for you.
All right, so as you guys saw the scroll here at the bottom, we're talking some MLB this time. And of course, we'll start locally with the Cubs. The Cubs, sweep a 3-gamer against the Rockies. The Wednesday's game was a little bit interesting, probably a little more interesting than it should have been. But, especially the rain and the winds and snowing in some parts of the city, they were able to pull it out. And look, Seiya Suzuki had a great series. Cody Bellinger had a really good series. The pitching was actually really solid. I know they're still a little bit shorthanded because Justice Steele is going to be out for another week. But again, look, you did what you're supposed to against that Rockies team is just terrible. So they did cheer for Chris Bryant. That's very classy of the Cubs fans. But even still, I mean, look, they took care of business.
You talked about the injuries to the starting rotations to begin the season, Lakina. I want to give some props to Shoto Imanaga, who's going to start on Sunday for the Chicago Cubs. He's one of 4 Japanese players that's going to be playing in this weekend series against the Los Angeles Dodgers. We'll get to the Dodgers series in just a couple of minutes. But in the home opener on Monday, he pitched 7 innings of shutout ball, including 5 2/3 innings of no-hit ball. It was very impressive. Part of that was because of the Colorado Rockies, and I think the other part of it was because of the wet weather as well. But wherever the circumstances was, he pitched a heck of a game, and the Cubs, of course, shut out the Rockies last Monday in the home opener, 5-0. But you mentioned the bats. Seiya Suzuki's coming off of back-to-back games with a home run. Ian Happ starting to pick it up as well. Nico Horner, you got to shore up that glove a little bit. He's a gold glover, and we expect him to increase his play defensively. Also, too, let's not forget Cody Bellinger. He had a home run the other night as well. So this Cubs offense, when it's on, and we said this last year, when this Cubs offense is on and is healthy, it could be one of the top offenses in the league now. Now, we'll get to the Dodgers more in just a minute, but the only team that can rival the Cubs offensively is just a couple of teams in the National League alone, the Atlanta Braves and the Los Angeles Dodgers. But when the Cubs are on and they're doing what they're supposed to do, they can't compete with anybody in the National League.
Jay Grizz, thank you. We can't forget about Morel. We have not forgotten about Mr. Morel here, Grizz. He had a couple of big hits. Actually had 2 home runs during that series as well. So, like I said, look, okay, yeah, it's the Rockies, but you know what? Look, you did what you're supposed to do. And look, I mean, you got a tough series coming up against the Dodgers. Should be very entertaining, because the Dodgers, they swept the Giants, and I look, I don't know what the best thing you could do is just, if you're a Cubs fan, if you just win one, I guess if you win one, I guess that's a good thing. I guess if you'll take it if you're a Cubs fan. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how this team measures up to the Dodgers. They've been, like hitting the ball lights out. Their pitch has been very solid. You got Bobby Miller against Kyle Hendricks today, so that's gonna be very interesting. And on that front, I think that's really going to be a fascinating game. But like you said, also too, that Sunday matchup. That's going to be a Sunday Night Baseball, and this is going to be very interesting to see how this kind of plays out. So we'll see the litmus test, I guess, for the Cubs and how they measure up to probably the top team in baseball.
Yeah, yours surely is going to be there tomorrow. One, because my personal celebration at Jackie Robinson Day. Thank you, Commissioner Rob Manfred, a.k.a. Baby C League. I'll get into that later. And thank you to Mother Nature. It looks like it's going to cooperate. It's going to be 50 degrees tomorrow. So yours surely be on the front lines experiencing that Shohei Ohtani and Yoshi Yamamoto experience. So it should be fun. So tomorrow's pitching matchup for the Cubs-Dodgers series will be Jordan Wicks versus Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And, of course, Sunday it is Gavin Stone versus Shota Imanaga. So great pitching matchups, all 3 games. So we'll see what the Cubs are made of. But real quick on the Dodgers, Lakina, Mookie Betts is having a hot start to the season. You mentioned Freddie Freeman. Shohei Ohtani hit his first home run as a Dodger on Wednesday to complete the sweep over the San Francisco Giants. I know that the Dodgers, the only weakness I think they have right now is the back end of their bullpen. Remember, around this time last year, they had problems. It was able to straighten itself out a little bit, but their offense disappeared come playoff time last year. But this Dodgers offense is scary, and Kyle Hendricks should set the tone today for this Cubs starting staff. If he doesn't place his fastballs in the correct spot, those hitters will take advantage of it, and they will not apologize for it.
Yeah, so it could come down to pitching. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that. It's really Second City Sports. Sports of Chicago, Lakeem McGee, Cindy Brown with you. We're talking some baseball here. First full week of the regular season in the books. The White Sox, I mean, look, they lost a tough one last night, 10-1 to the Royals. I looked at that and I'm thinking, okay, kind of figure, because the Royals have been playing very well early on, so not surprised there. They gave Baltimore all kinds of fits earlier this week. And of course, look, if you're the Sox, I mean, look, you lost. You got shut out by Atlanta, and thankfully it was a shortened game, thank the Lord. But look, Garrett Crochet, I mean, you might have found a gem there. I mean, like he shut out some of those top hitters for the Braves, and they actually were able to steal one. So at least you got a split, even though they had to postpone the other one until I think June 27th. I think that's when they'll play make up that game. But yeah, you did okay against the Braves, I guess.
Yeah, like I said, one of the few bright spots in this quote unquote bad season that we may experience is Garrett Crochet. I was there last Thursday for the home opener, and Crochet pitched his butt off, and He only gave up one run, but the Sox offense refused to help him. They did a little bit this time the other day on Tuesday. Michael Kopech, I want to talk about this for a second, Lakina. I know our girl Christine, the Queen Manica, who has this week off, she'll be back with us hopefully next week. She was in the opinion, and there's been a few Sox fans over the years that have been suggested that Michael Kopech could be a closer. Well, he had the opportunity to do that on Tuesday. Almost blew it, but he got the job done. And Lakina, I don't know about you, but to become a closer in Major League Baseball, you got to have a different mentality. And if you give up a hit, you just got to forget about it and move on to the next batter. And number 3, you got to have more than just a fastball to get guys out.
Yeah, and I think that's really going to be something he's going to have to work on. So hopefully he can figure it out. I mean, so far so good in that front. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how kind of this experiment goes, because yeah, like you said, he almost blew it. I mean, they all look Atlanta. You could probably say Atlanta probably should have won that game. That's why. Luckily, they did not play, because I'm sure they would have made the Sox pay on Wednesday. So, it's going to be interesting. Yeah, right, because it's going to be interesting. But, I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, look, I mean, maybe it won't be maybe you'll win 5 more games, I guess, if you're the White Sox. Maybe you'll win 65 or 70 instead of only 50 or 60. So, look, I think Crochet's been a really big surprise. We'll see if he can keep it up. But, I mean, I think if you're a Sox fan, you're kind of just taking the season as it goes.
Yeah, what the season is about, who's going to be on this roster, not just for this year, but for next year and for years to come going forward. So we'll see about the White Sox, and that's the kind of year it's going to be. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Friday edition, the first one for the month of April, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. See Lakina hang out here with you. Now let's get into the broader perspective of Major League Baseball, Lakina. Let's say congratulations to Ronel Blanco. He pitched a no-hitter, the first for 2024, as part of a 10-0 shutout win for the Houston Astros as they beat the Toronto Blue Jays. And Lakina, he struck out 7. He was very impressive. We talked about the Toronto Blue Jays hitting disappearing in a playoff series last year against Minnesota. It was a no-show. It was a no-show on Monday. But Mr. Blanco was placing his fastball in the right spot. I thought he used his breaking ball very effectively. He got those Toronto hitters. We talked about them before. Like, we know the names from them, but they were mowed down on Monday, and it was a great performance by Mr. Blanco.
Yeah, Blanco, that's the 17th no-hitter in Astros history. And also, too, his story is fascinating because he barely made the main roster. He had to kind of like work his butt off because he was an outfielder for years, and he's from the Dominican Republic. He actually, I think I saw an article where he was like mowing lawns or painting houses to help his mother out, pay the bills. He was kind of like a journeyman. This was only his 8th starts. Eight career starts. So, you kind of like these kind of stories where things are just, hitting and hitting and, just hitting it all over. And he struck out Biggio a couple of times. He struck out Guerrero Jr. a few times. So you kind of, at the very least, you kind of like watching stories like this. I know it kind of got lost in the shuffle because of all the, the Iowa LSU hoopla and women's college basketball. But do you think that some people wonder, like, do you think that the no-hitter has no longer any significance?
I don't know if I agree with that. The reason why I don't agree with that, because it's still a great feat in Major League Baseball. Is even though it's a team sport, it's very individualized. It's the hitter versus the pitcher and vice versa. You had to have almost everything go your way, whether it's a perfect game or a no-hitter. As I mentioned, you got to have you just got to be on that day, and certain things just have to go in your favor. Some things that are out of your control, hopefully those things will go in your favor. And it's still a hard feat to do, especially in this offensive era we are in right now. Like, not compared to what we experienced in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, but we're in a different offensive era right now, and it's still very, very impressive. We all know that starting pitching is valued at a premium right now, but for those that can still accomplish this feat, especially during this time, my hat's off to them.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's kind of unfortunate that this no hitter, especially with the story behind it, the pitcher. I mean, it really didn't get too much attention as it should have. I mean, look, it's still a big accomplishment. It's still rare. Yeah, I know there were like 11 or 12 no hitters a couple of years ago. I know people are like, yeah, you know what, who cares? But look, it's still a rare feat. So even some of the best pitchers ever did not throw a no hitter or a perfect game. So I think for anybody that does it, whether it's a journeyman or somebody that we kind of figure would do it, I mean, it should be, they should be commended, it should be applauded.
Yes, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. We had our first 3 home run game of the season this past Tuesday, Lakina,
Yeah.
as the Philadelphia Phillies defeated the Cincinnati Reds 9-4. Bryce Harper, who should have been in the White Sox uniform, by the way, he had the first 3 home run performance of the regular season. Lakina, we talked about this on Monday, and we talked about it last week. As long as he stays healthy, I think Philadelphia, they'll have a chance to challenge the Atlanta Braves for the NL East title. I think they're a wild card team, in my opinion. I think I picked them to make one of those 3 wild card spots in the NL. But this would, hopefully, if he stays healthy, this will be the first year with him and Trey Turner in that lineup on a consistent basis. That Philadelphia offense, we talked about the Cubs, the Dodgers, and the Braves, but that Philadelphia offense is not too shabby either when everybody's healthy. Not just Bryce Harper, not just Trey Turner, but let's not forget about former Cubs Kyle Schwarber as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really going to be the key. Of course, the pitch is going to be the key if they want to. The Phillies are going to want to, try to keep up in the AL East with the Braves, so that's going to be very key in that. Now, Harper's actually the first MLB player in the modern era to record his 1,000th career run while having at least 3 home runs in the same game. So, a big feat here for Mr. Harper, and I think the key here for me, especially with the Phillies, it's going to be their hitting. They got to stay consistent with that. The other guys have to step up, and also too with the pitching, especially. So if they want to keep up with the Braves, I mean, unfortunately, they lost that series against Cincinnati. That was only a few bright spots in that series. They had a couple. They actually had a chance to win both those 2 games, but they just couldn't get any runs across in the back end of the late innings. But look, yeah, I've been feeling pretty good if you're a Phillies fan right now. Still very early, you can still kind of make some waves and do some damage.
Yeah, staying on the East Coast, let's go to the American League East. The New York Yankees continue to have a hot start to the year, Lakina, after sweeping the Astros last weekend to start the year 4-0. They took a dip in that second game in the Diamondback series, but they were able to win the first game and the last game of the series. They won the last game on Wednesday by the score of 6-5 in 11 innings. Of course, as we mentioned, they're taking on the Toronto Blue Jays right now in Yankee Stadium in their home opener, but I'm not going to sit here and say the Yankees do not have something special brewing. I know they're missing Garrett Cole to start the year. Carlos Rodon, the former White Sox pitcher, pressure is on him this year after he was given that big contract last year. But Juan Soto has proven to be the main difference so far this year. I want to see him and Aaron Judge and John Carlos Stanton, all three of those guys stay healthy for the majority of the season. Of course, all 3 of us, including Christine, picked the Yankees to make the playoffs as a wild card. And when healthy, that line can be dangerous.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key. Keeping Judge healthy and staying healthy, and Soto healthy, especially. Soto wants to have that 9-figure deal. So I think he still has some incentive to make these big numbers this year. So he's got off to a hot start. And the back end of their pitching has been very solid too. I mean, they were actually very close to blowing those first and that third game of that series, but they were able to pull it out thanks to good defense. And they're 6-1 right now as we're recording this. Of course, like you said, they're playing Toronto as we speak. So that should be a fun series. But I mean, if you're in New York, if you're a Yankees fan, you don't want to go too far ahead. I know the last earthquake, if you will, was in 2017. Actually, the Yankees did pretty well that year. So maybe that's a good omen. Who knows? But I mean, Yankees hope they can keep it up.
Yeah, staying in the AL East division, the Boston Red Sox, no problem with the Oakland A's. Oakland A's have a whole bunch of problems both on the field and off the field. We'll get to the off the field stuff in just a moment. But the Tampa Bay Rays, they're coming out of the gate struggling. They lost 2 out of 3 to the defending world champion Texas Rangers at home this week. Now they'll travel on the road for the first time this year to Colorado to take on the bad Rockies team this weekend. As far as the Rays are concerned, that's what the doctor ordered. Let's see if they take advantage of that. The New York Mets, going back to the NL East, they lost a doubleheader yesterday, a split doubleheader to the Detroit Tigers yesterday. Lakina, I want to focus in on the Detroit Tigers for just a minute. Of course, I was witness to all 3 games at the White Sox last weekend. Their pitching is good, but I think their bullpen is even better. Now, the offense won't scare you on the statue with Spencer Torkelson. I know they have Javi Baez, a former Cub, but their bullpen is not too shabby. And if that offense, like I said, it doesn't scare you on paper, but if that offense scores enough runs, that bullpen can shut you down. We've seen that so far through the first week of this season.
Yeah, look, that's the White Sox that sweep early late last week. So yeah, I mean, look, I think Detroit, they're kind of doing the old fashioned way, the old fashioned baseball. Good pitch. I know Shelby Miller had a great showing in that game yesterday against the Yankees. I know that the bullpen kind of like kept it going and kind of like huffed the Yankees, especially late in the innings. They kind of held on to take the series there. But I think if you're Detroit, I think you gotta be feeling pretty good where you're at right now. If you get the hitting to catch up with the pitching, I think you could be a dangerous team, not just in the AL Central, but in all the AL.
Yeah. Staying in the AL Central, your Mariners lost 2-3 to the Cleveland Guardians at home. I know you don't want to hear that. And the Twins split the short 2-game home series opener with the Milwaukee Brewers 90 miles north of us. So, and that should wrap up in the AL Central. Lakina, the Miami Marlins 0-6 to start the year. The St. Louis Cardinals beat them yesterday by the score of 8-5 in St. Louis's whole opener. Do you have any hope for the Miami Marlins to recover this year after making the playoffs last year?
Yeah, it's just a disappointing start for the Marlins, and after making the playoffs last year. I mean, Tim Anderson, unfortunately, so far has not been very good. Jake Burger's actually been okay. It's the reason why they were able to get back in that game yesterday against St. Louis. But I'm a little worried because they've had to dump a lot of salary, and I don't know. I mean, hopefully they can figure it out. I mean, it's still a long ways to go, but yeah, I'm not liking what I'm looking at, with the Marlins.
Yeah, so we'll see if they can get it going. Now, going back to the AL Central and AL East matchup earlier this week, the Kansas City Royals, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Baltimore Orioles. I watched the finale on Wednesday. Baltimore comes back for the 3-0 deficit on Wednesday to win the series finale by the score of 4-3. James McCann, the former White Sox catcher, had a 2-run RBI single to end the game. Lakina, we talk about Ali Rutschman. We talk about Gunnar Henderson. Cedric Mullins came in that game as a pinch runner late. Anthony Santander, not Santander, but Santander. Yeah, but they have a bunch of young hitters, and they're starting pitching. We'll see what happens. Of course, we talked about Corbin Burns being picked up from the Milwaukee Brewers in the offseason via the trade, but we don't know the hitting is going to stay around if the majority of that group stays healthy and consistent. But I want to see how that pitching picks up. It starts with Corbin Burns, and hopefully it'll trickle down to the rest of the guys in that starting rotation.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the key for Baltimore. It was really the pitching that kind of let them down later on the season and going to the playoffs. So if they can kind of get that together, maybe get a couple of middle relief guys in a trade deadline, they could definitely be unstoppable. And like we've been saying for the last couple of months, I mean, Baltimore is now the hunt head. So now you've got Toronto, you've got the Yankees who are having their hot start, and even Boston. I know they've been kind of up and down, but Boston's been really solid. So they know that they can't rest on their laurels and they have to be on their game every night. In fact, they were able to come back against the Royals. So, they got to be feeling pretty good if you're an Orioles fan. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. Now, I want to talk about this real quick when it comes to the Royals. The people in Missouri has voted no on a new stadium for both the Royals and the Chiefs.
I don't know about you. Does that situation sound almost familiar, like here in Chicago, even though our stadium situation is not being put to a vote? If I said this about us here in Chicago about the potential new White Sox stadium and Bears stadium as well. But if I know we as taxpayers will have to pay for it in some way, shape, or form, but if it's up to the citizens to flip the majority of the bill while those owners and corporate sponsors keep the majority of money in their pocket, it's not going to go well.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be the thing. I know former Illinois Governor Pat Quinn wants to have an input initiative in there to vote, in the upcoming November elections. But look, I think they know. Yeah, and I think the Bears and White Sox, they know that that most of the people are going to say no. So that's even the people who are diehards, they're not going to vote yes on a new stadium to have the taxpayers pay for it. That's just not going to happen. So I know that some people say, well, maybe the Chiefs could come here to Chicago or something like that. So I think
that's not happening, folks.
Just some weird, weird like conspiracy theories. But I think like it's been said. I mean, look, just because you're a fan of a team, that doesn't mean that hey, I'm not going to put my tax dollars in a new stadium for them.
Yeah, especially not to get too political here, but the way that inflation is right now, season ticket prices, especially for the NFL, is expensive more than the other three major sports. I don't think people are going to put up with this too much anymore. So if the majority of the citizens think that we're going to flip the bill, while the others on top keep the majority of the money in their pocket, it's not going to fly here. It's not.
And look at what happened with Oakland. I mean, I guess they're going to Sacramento for a couple of years. And I mean,
14,000 minor league stadium.
Yeah, I mean,
until that stadium is ready by 2028 in Las Vegas. I know the city of Oakland is going through it, and like I said, there's more deeper issues there. I'm not an expert. We don't live in Oakland, and I read some stuff about that. That whole city has been in a free fall economically for years. I know the Warriors. Mm-hmm. That's why they moved out to San Francisco. And San Jose, they play in San Jose, but I know that they're a small part of that Bay Area, but they're not they never really touched the area of Oakland in years. But as far as the Oakland A's fans are concerned, my heart really goes out to them. Their owner is a piece of crap. I'll leave it at that. But there's a rich history with that organization. You talk about Reggie Jackson, Ricky Henderson, Mark McGuire, Jose Canseco, Tony La Russa before he came here. But but you talk about Raleigh Fingers and Ray Fosse and some of the great names in the game of baseball. They play for that Oakland franchise. And remember, Lakina, real quick, back in 1995 when now Las Vegas Rays, but then the LA Rays, when they moved to Oakland, remember that stadium that they still play in? It was one of the most beautiful parks in Major League Baseball. They turned that into a downtown parking lot, office building, parking lot when the Raiders moved there in 1995. It's just been such a sad state of affairs. They really turned that park into.
Yeah, it's and the team itself. I mean, it's not like they don't have talent there on there, but it's just that there's just been so much weirdness going on there the last decade. It feels like they went to the playoffs a few years back, and it's just like since then. And then, so I don't know, well, to be continued in that front, on in here too. We'll keep you guys updated on that. Now, let's go to this weekend's games. Sid, of course, we talked about Toronto and the Yankees are playing right now, as well as, speaking of Oakland, they faced Detroit, first game of that series. Of course, Dodgers and Cubs, ESPN Plus, to stream it there as you're listening to us and watching us. Tampa Bay and Colorado. Baltimore and Pittsburgh, that should be a fun series. Pittsburgh, a solid start for them.
The rematch of the Rio Family World Series from '79.
Yes, exactly. So I wonder if they're going to wear those uniforms in the 70s, but I digress. San Diego and San Francisco, the Mets and the Reds. That's going to be the first game that'll be streamed on Apple TV Plus. So all you Mets fans, you may want to take a game off here if you don't want to watch it on your local station. Cincinnati. Philadelphia and the Nationals also too. They continue their series.
All right, the rest of the schedule for this weekend in Major League Baseball goes like this: Arizona visit Atlanta. The second game of the Apple TV Plus regional doubleheader tonight will feature Houston and Texas. We have Seattle and Milwaukee, and the Red Sox will travel to California, stay in California, but this time they'll take on the Anaheim Angels. Your national TV schedule are as follows for Saturday. The Dodgers and the Cubs in the second game of that series will be on FS1. That's at 3:05 p.m. While you'll watch on Sunday Night Baseball, we will have Astros and Rangers. That's at 6 p.m. on Sunday. And on ESPN Plus on Sunday, we'll have Baltimore and Pittsburgh, the third game of that series. So that's your national TV schedule for Major League Baseball for this weekend.
Our number one in the books, our number two straight hitters, just like I see sports. On Sports in Chicago, Lakina McGee, City Brown with you, as we're already Mike Chen, college sports blogger on deck. We're going to talk some men's Final Four, some coaching changes, also to some women's Final Four as well. And I thought our buddy Jay Grizz wants to know about Bronny. Well, I'm sure Mike will have some thoughts about that. Of course, we'll talk Bulls and be able to forget about that either. Maybe a little bit of NHL as well. And a whole lot more. Lots to do still the second hour. Lakina McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports, Sports in Chicago. Our buddy Mike Chen coming up right after this.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Second City Sports, the Friday edition. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Cindy Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kim McGee on the Twitter, X, and Kim's going in the IG.
We have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for us, especially for our next guest, as we get into the women's and men's Final Four talk, you can go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. Look in, I'm going to get them up on the screen for you. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago live in the living color right now on Roku TV.
All right, he's one of our favorites to talk college sports with, as he covers both the Buckeyes and the Irish for USA Today. Of course, you also know from 6 a.m. to Score, he was a producer for many years. He's one of our favorites, the one, the only, the fabulous Mr. Mike Chen. Mike, how are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So, I know that the men's Final Four, of course, is tomorrow. So, do you have any thoughts on the women's Final Four that's going on tonight in Cleveland?
Yeah, obviously, Caitlin Clark is the big story here. Everyone's watching her. I mean, the Elite Eight game against LSU broke numerous viewership records for women's college basketball. And the matchup against Paige Buckner at UConn, I mean, that's must-see TV. Even if you're not necessarily a women's basketball fan, I found myself tuning into a lot more games this year, and I think that the fact that it's the women's game is growing. Let's be real here. When you have personalities, like Clark, LSU, their whole team. I mean, they're entertaining to watch. You've got some fabulous coaches as well that people are paying attention to. Gino Auriemma's been there for forever. Dawn Staley is, obviously a great player, and she comes back and she's a fantastic coach. She's going to be a Hall of Famer if she's not already. I'm not sure if she is. But you're talking about the women's game that's growing, and it's almost must watch TV, especially that night game tonight, that UConn and Iowa game. That's going to be really interesting. In my eyes, I feel like the winner of that game has an edge on the national championship game. Although South Carolina's pretty damn good as well. And on top of that, NC State, how about that Wolfpack? The basketball program for the men's and the women's, putting each of their teams in the Final Four. That is very, very impressive. So I'm really excited to get a chance to watch these games tonight. And obviously, that 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock game, that late one, that's the one to watch.
I want to ask you about the hype surrounding Caitlin Clark. I know she's a tremendous talent, as I told Lakina in our last hour. I'm impressed by her passing as well. We focusing on her shooting, but she's an excellent passer as well.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us about the hype surrounding Caitlin Clark. We know her college career is going to come to an end this weekend, but do you think that can translate into the WNBA when she's selected to the Indiana Fever for this upcoming season? Because I think that's a big question here.
No, I think that her skills are going to translate over very, very easily. She shoots NBA threes, and she's got a quick trigger. She sees the floor very well. The thing you can question is her defense. It might not be that kind of caliber at the moment, but if you're going to take one over the other, is she going to score 25 to 30 points? And if she plays okay defense, I think that works. That plays. She's a fantastic shooter. The court vision is unbelievable. Obviously her range. It's just like when you watch her play these games right now, and I get it. It's college competition. It's not the WNBA. But, there's still girls that are going to be playing at that next level that she's going up against, and she's just tearing them up. She accounts for like 70% of the scoring for Iowa right now, whether it's her scoring or passing. The offense revolves around her. You could tell that when she goes to the bench, which is not very often, but when she goes to the bench, Iowa definitely struggles. They need her. She is the catalyst. She is the one that makes that team go. And, it wouldn't surprise me for us to see Clark in her first year in the WNBA to be an all-star, to, be one of the best players in the league, one of the most watched players in the league. Like I just said, there's so many eyes on her. Everyone wants to watch her career. She's like, I don't want to compare her to LeBron James because that's like the most recent guy with social media and everything. But the fact that everyone's paying attention to everything she does, like literally everything that she does. She's just putting more eyes on the women's sport. I think there's just, it's hard to quantify what she's actually doing for the game because it's so early in her career. But I think that so many more people are going to be interested in watching what she does to the next level. And I think that her skills translate. And I think she's going to be a fantastic player in the WNBA.
Should be interesting what happens tonight. Let's switch gears over to the men's side. You got some couple of great matches, I think. You got NC on the men's side, NC State and Purdue, and of course the main course, if you will be Alabama, their first ever trip to the Final Four against Zach Edey's Purdue squad. We'll start with the first game. Of course, a big the UConn squad, I should say. That's who Alabama's playing tonight. But yeah, let's talk about that Purdue NC State game because you got the two of the big guys. You've got of course, and you've got DJ Burns, who's kind of like a cult figure on the men's side this tournament. So, what do you think are the keys there? Who do you think has the edge?
I'm gonna give the edge right now to Purdue. I just think that their offense, everything revolves around Zach Edey. We've seen it all tournament long. Defensively, everyone kind of collapses in, and then their guards, Braden Smith, Fletcher Lawyer, etc. Those guys are able to get open threes. And look, Edey is in the running to be back-to-back National Player of the Year. I just think that the edge goes to them. Now, is NC State a team that's going to give them a battle? I really believe so. NC State's playing with like some of the most confidence that you'll ever see a team play. They literally weren't going to make the NCAA tournament if they didn't win the ACC tournament. They won that. They carried that momentum over. And a lot of times you see teams make a run in their conference tournament and then fizzle out in the first round of the NCAA tournament. That's not NC State. They just kept the confidence that they've got going through all those teams, beating North Carolina, getting, teams that are quality teams. It's not like they had an easy draw in the ACC tournament and just kind of walked through it. They played some tough teams. Now, the emergence of DJ Burns, I think that is very interesting. And the reason why I think it's interesting is because Burns is not a NBA guy. I don't really think he's going to play at the next level. There's a 100% possibility that the young man is going to end up as an offensive tackle in the NFL. There is plenty of chatter about the fact that if he was to go through a pro day workout, a team would take a risk on him later on in like the 5th, the 7th round, which to me is like mind boggling because, I mean, we've seen it before, obviously. We've seen basketball players end up playing in the NFL. It's not uncommon, but I mean, a guy that moves the way he does, who carries that weight that he does. I've seen clips of him as a younger player, and he is definitely a lot lighter. He's put on a lot of weight, and I think that weight really helps him bang down low. And on top of that, I think that's the matchup between Burns and Edey. It's going to be fantastic to watch because they are very similar players. They're not like the stretch fives that you see right now, guys who aren't going to, they're not going to shoot threes. They are traditional back to the basket type of players. And, DJ Burns, he's fun to watch. He looks like he's like literally walking just like super slow. He's got that old man game to him, right? Where he can kind of do whatever he wants on the court, but it doesn't look like he's moving fast. He doesn't look like he's being efficient. Before you know it, you look up and he's got 20 and 10 and he's, leading his team to another win. So I definitely give the edge to Purdue, but it's gonna be a really fun game. It's gonna be a really good.
We could use DJ Burns here in Chicago for the Bears, but that's a whole nother issue. Hopefully Ryan Post is paying attention. But sticking with NC State, Mike, of course you talk about DJ Burns and DJ Horn, but who needs to be that third guy to step up if NC State is going to pull off that upset?
I think it's Jaden Taylor. He's a guy that leads the team in three-point percentage. He's shooting 36%. I mean, obviously, they're going to focus in on stopping DJ Burns and the DJs, Burns and Horn. That's going to be the focus for Purdue. And if they're going to try and do that all game long, Taylor's going to have an opportunity to have open shots. He's got to hit them. That's the key for them. If he can get a couple of threes, get going hot early, really get a good feel for the game, I feel like NC State can battle with Purdue. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull off an upset, but if Taylor hits 5 to 6 threes in this game, it's going to be close at the end, and they'll have a chance to pull it off.
Let's talk about that second game between Bama and UConn. UConn basically a whole new squad. They're going for back-to-back. Alabama, of course, their first ever trip to the men's Final Four. Mark Sears, Grant Nelson. Of course, we know the guys over there at Bama. Of course, UConn go a good 9 to 10 deep. Of course, you got Spencer, Newton, and Klingon. Do you see Alabama having a shot against UConn?
That is a good question. So I did a little bit of research on, I went a little deeper dive into what UConn's done in this tournament, and it is extremely impressive. They've won their games 39 points, 17 points, 30 points, and 25 points. They have not had a single-digit win here. No team has scored over 60 points against the Huskers in this tournament. I mean, the average margin of victory is almost 28 points. It's just unbelievable. And like you said, the waves and waves and waves of players that they have here. Danny Hurley's done a great job of recruiting, understanding his roster. And that's the big difference, especially in the college game where you've got your transfer portal, you've got plenty of ones and dones as well. It's about managing your roster and understanding where your needs are. And then on top of that, development. Because Klingon was a solid player, but he wasn't what he was 2 years ago, right? He's now developed into a guy that you could see and look at and say, all right, that he's got an opportunity to play in the NBA. He's got that skill set. He can jump out and shoot a couple threes here and there. He's kind of like that modern big man, but it took him a while to get there. And to me, I can't see Alabama. I think Alabama's a really good team. I think they're a high scoring team. I mean, over the course of this year, they've had 13 games where they've scored over 100 points. They're one of the highest scoring. You're talking about a high scoring offense against a defense that limits this scoring. If Alabama can score 80 points, they might win this game. But I just don't see it. I think that UConn's defense is just too damn good to allow Alabama to go off. But I would say that, UConn, and I'm not 100% sure the line is, it's got to be like 8-9 points. I'd take that. I think UConn's going to roll into the championship game.
Yeah, the latest line right now is UConn by 11.5.
11.
So,
oh yeah, I'd still take that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd still take that.
Mm-hmm.
We're hanging out with our guy Mike Chen, formerly at 670 in Score in Chicago. Yeah, he's a blogger for USA Today, covering college sports, college basketball in particular. He's hanging out here with us right here on Second City Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you. You kind of stole my thunder on my next question, but hopefully you can do a deeper dive here. What makes Donovan Clingan so special for UConn? I watched him against Illinois. You really didn't have to do too much, especially in that second half with that 30-0 run. But I saw him in the previous two games, especially the one against Northwestern. He has just been, like you said, he's been so dominant in this tournament. He's really improved his game as the year has gone on.
Yeah, his skill set is unique. He's a big guy. I think he's like 6'11", but he can dribble the ball. He can run. You can run the offense through him, kind of like what Purdue does. They're very UConn and Purdue very, very similar. But I just think that his tenacity, rebounding the ball, sets him apart because he really goes hard after the glass. He gets a lot of second chance points for UConn, and he's able to give them that extra possession, extra 2 possessions, extra 3 possessions that they need to continue scoring. And, he, not only that, he's a rim protector. He's got 81 blocks on the year. He's a very good all around player. He's a collegiate superstar. Now, again, I don't know if that, that type of skill set, especially in today's NBA, really translates over really well. There's so many players. Zach Edey also falls into this category, that if we're talking about 90s NBA, you're probably looking at these two guys going 1-2 in the draft, right? But that's just not the way that the NBA is played anymore. So I just think that his skill set is what sets him apart from the other big men. He's just he plays like a guard in a big man's body, and he's able to do a lot of things that you wouldn't necessarily see a guy his size do. I think that's what sets him apart because he's so versatile. Honestly, the whole UConn squad is so versatile. A lot of those guys can do a lot of things. And, he's just he's a microcosm of what that whole team encompasses. And, he's fantastic. I'm a big fan of his. Again, I'm not sure if all that translates over the NBA, but from what we've seen and what he can do at the collegiate level, he's one of the better collegiate players out there.
I want to get your thoughts on some of the coaching changes. We see Andy Effel, he's going to SMU. Eric Musselman, now he's over at USC. Now, of course, DePaul. Of course, they hire Chris Holtman from Ohio State. So tell us, what have there been any coaching, still changes that kind of like made you scratch your head or were surprising? And also tell us a little bit about Chris Holtman. For all the DePaul fans listening to this.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised about Musselman. He's got a little bit of NBA experience under his belt. And a lot of times those guys that go to the NBA don't want to go back to the college game. And it's mainly because of recruiting. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how he translates back into, from the NBA game to the college game. Because I know that he's coached in college before, and I get that. But, that mentality, that mindset, to me, I don't know if it always translates over. I know that, it does a little bit, like, look at college football. You don't see a lot of, it's the NFL that they're trying to get to because they kind of want to get away from some of that recruiting. I mean, and so I think it's interesting, and we'll touch on some Bronny James stuff, I'm sure, in a couple minutes. But, Bronny, the rumors were that Bronny was going to enter the portal, and he is. USC, I mean, there's a lot to offer in California, and especially in LA. And basketball is a pretty solid state to recruit out of. They really don't need to go too far to do any recruiting. I think that's going to be interesting to see how that works out for USC, especially with them going to the Big Ten next year. It's Big Ten basketball is not quite what the pack is. And, it's a little bit more bruise them, bang them. I mean, look at Purdue. They're the tentpole program right now. And, they go slow. They throw the ball in the big man. They seem to have a really good 7-footer like every year. And I don't know how Matt Painter does it, finding these guys and then developing. But you have to hats off to him. But Musselman, I think he's got it's an interesting situation. Now for Holtman, I think Holtman, obviously covering Ohio State, I've got a chance to watch Holtman over the last few years, and I think Holtman. He was a little bit too stubborn to realize that some of his concepts just weren't translating over into today's game. And he had, that stubbornness hurt him. He runs a little bit slower of an offense. As you can see, a lot of collegiate offenses right now are running a little bit more faster paced. He doesn't like to, run secondary breaks. He likes to slow it down, get into a set offense. And then on top of it, part of that was that some of his set offensive pieces weren't very good. It's not surprising to me that is, kind of like the DePaul job is kind of right where he should have landed. I think that is a good spot for him. They're giving him a long leash. I believe it's a 7-year contract that they gave him. So they're going to give him some time to rebuild and rework because he's going to have to, get a completely different roster. Now, the good part for him is that he also is not going to have to go very far to recruit. There's plenty of Chicagoland talent that is NCAA level. DePaul's, I wouldn't say they're a sleeping giant, but I think they're just like, they're just kind of like a spot below that. I mean, obviously they don't have the history of winning titles, etc., but I think that they could consistently be in the tournament. And that's the bar for him, right? That's making the tournament. And I think that Chris Holtman, you're going to have to give him a couple of years, but I do think that he'll eventually turn the program around and it'll look a lot better. And, I just, what he did at Ohio State towards the end of his tenure, I hope he learned from. And it does kind of seem like he did learn from that, but he wasn't a free agent for very long. It was about a month until he got the job. So it's clear that the coaching fraternity, everyone, at the admissions and the front office there at DePaul really believed in what he can do and where he can get the program to. So I think that's going to be a couple of years, but I think Holtman will get the program going in the right direction.
Speaking of another head coach, Mike, let's talk about Brad Underwood. He's finally got over the hump of early round X's and got the Illinois Final Lineup program on the edge of the Final Four. It looks like a couple of guys may not be back in Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon Jr. So recruiting, he has to go back out there and recruit some top-notch players. But what if as of right now, what percentage would you give Illinois a chance to reach the Final Four next year? Because you mentioned earlier with USC, you got 4 West Coast schools joining the Big Ten next year.
Yeah, I think that, I think making the tournament, I think for Illinois next year, I think that's a solid goal. Underwood has done a really good job of working the portal as well. And I think that overall, he does a good job recruiting too. But there's going to be losses, and I think there's going to be more than just those 2 that you named. It just happens. That's just the way college basketball works now. Starters leave. It's which kind of boggles my mind, but starters leave because they think NIL deals are better somewhere else. I think the one detractor that the Illini have is that they don't play in a booming metropolitan city. Champagne's kind of boring.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
I've heard too.
My wife's probably not very happy that I'm saying that 'cause she's alumni, but it is a little boring. There's just not a lot to do there. When you're talking about going to like other places, around the Big Ten, they're bigger bigger cities, more things to do. But I think that, they're a team that has plenty of tradition that can be good. And, I was pleasantly surprised on their run. I think Underwood has the trajectory of the program. It took him a few years to kind of get his feet wet and get it really going. Now they finally have success in the NCAA tournament. Now, unfortunately, they ran into a buzzsaw against UConn. But you could have made the argument that if they had a different draw and they were in a different region, we could be talking about them in the Final Four right now. I think they were that good, and they were playing at that level at the end of the year. So I don't think it's far-fetched to say that they could make the Final Four. I'm not sure what that time frame would be, but I do think that that's in the cards for them in the future because, like I said, Underwood has the program going in the right direction. I think he's doing a really good job.
And Dane Deja actually just committed to Memphis, so he's going to be playing for your guy, Penny Hardaway, Sid. Right. So, you got yourself a big man there now. Real quick, I know you got to go, but your winners for tomorrow and your champion for Monday night.
We talking men's or women's?
Both. You can do both if you want to.
Okay. Man, I'm going to take the easier game first for the women. I'm going to take South Carolina. I've been thinking about the UConn-Iowa game for, the last couple of days. It's hard for me to say, like, I keep going, well, Caitlin, and then Paige, and then Caitlin, and then Paige. It's hard. I just think that Caitlin Clark kind of pushes them through and has that kind of dream season, breaking the scoring record, winning the Big Ten tournament, and then she's going to go on to win the national title and ride off into the sunset. So I'm going to take UConn in that one, and then obviously I take UConn over South Carolina. I've got UConn on the other side. Oh yeah, that's right. UConn, NC State, both basketball programs are doing that. Doing well. Yep. I'm going to take UConn over Alabama. I just don't think that Alabama is going to be able to score enough. I think they'll score well, but I don't know if they'll be able to do enough. And the other side, I'm going to take Purdue. I think the Boilermakers have done enough. I think they've learned a lot over the course of last year, losing in the first round, this year, making a deep run. I think they've learned a lot. They're mentally tougher than NC State, and I think that's what pushes them over the edge. I think NC State has a lot of momentum, like I talked about earlier, but I do think that at the end of the day, I think the Boilers are going to push through. And then that championship game, man, that's going to be, if it is UConn or Purdue, that's going to be a must-watch game on Monday night. Everyone's going to be tuning in. Battle of the big men right there. And then if it's a draw between Klingon and Edey, I'd have to go with the rest of the UConn team over Purdue's team. So I've got the Huskies taking that.
Last question for me, Mike, real quick. We talk about the NIL rule in the transfer portal. Of course, the legendary coaches have been retiring for the last couple of years, and Coach K from Duke and Roy Williams from North Carolina. How much time do you think that Tom Izzo from Michigan State has left? And do you think he'll be the next legendary coach to fall, quote, unquote, victim to this new era of college basketball that we're witnessing right now?
That is a very good question. That's a very good question. I think Tom Izzo's got another 5 to 10 years in them. Michigan State obviously hasn't won a title. I believe it was 2000 with Gene Cleaves. So it's been a while, right? Over 20 years. But it's not like Izzo hasn't had good teams in between then. He's really, his recruiting is always well. He's a great coach. He's, I wouldn't say he's like, one of the faces of college basketball right now, but he's, everyone knows who he is. And I don't think that he's going to go that route. I think he's, he's a little bit on the younger side. And I think he wants one more shot at a championship. Maybe, if he wins one in the next few years, I could see him just riding off into the sunset. But I still think he's got a good 5-10 years in him. And, you're going to see Michigan State continue to pop in the tournament, although I don't believe that they deserve to make it this year. I think they had one of the worst resumes of teams that got in. that disappointed me a little bit. I would have rather see like an Indiana State perhaps make it, but that wasn't my choice. That was committee's choice, and they got that Izzo bump there, and I think part of it is because he's been so good, and his teams are able to make runs, and I don't think that there's anything pushing him out of the door right now. They made the adjustment on NIL. It starts, to me, it starts on the football programs and it kind of trickles down to the basketball programs. For most schools, I'd say 90% of schools it does. And I think Michigan State's football program figured it out on the NIL side. You're talking about 85 players compared to 12, right? So it's a little bit easier to handle the NIL at the college basketball level than it is at the college football level. And that's why I think Izzo's got a little bit more time.
All right, Mike, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you got a jet, so where people can find all your writing, all that other, your social media, all that other good stuff.
You can go to fightingirishwire.com, and then you can also go to buckeyeswire.com. They are part of the USA Today network, and you could follow me on Twitter at Mike F. Chen.
All right, thanks, Mike, for joining us, and much continued success. And I said this to you privately. I want to say this to you publicly. Congratulations on becoming a father. How's it treating you so far?
Thank you. Little man is awesome. It's been quite a whirlwind, but probably it's the best thing I've ever done.
Great to hear.
Sweet. That's nice. Okay, so you guys stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. Have a good one.
All right, thanks, Mike.
All right, so that is, of course, USA Today sports blogger Mike Chen here on Second City Sports. Of course, we got still a lot to do, Sid, and to talk about as well. Of course, we got Bulls and NBA. Of course, a big trade that came down a couple of days ago in the NFL, and so much more. The Kingdom McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports, Sports of Chicago. More sports talk coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
We're rocking and rolling, rocking as we continue right here on Second City Sports, the first Friday edition for the month of April. So glad you can join us right here on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you. You can follow yours truly on Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kim McGee on the Twitter, X at again, the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today and for the week. So if you have any last minute questions or comments, you better hit up the Sports Zone Chicago Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube to type in those questions or comments in the comment section. The best ones will be put up on this. Will be put up on the screen by Lakina. And just for daily reminding you, catch Sports Zone Chicago live at 11 color right now on Roku TV.
All right, let's get this out of the way. Sid. Bulls lose to Atlanta, but both teams do make the play-in spots. So it'll be interesting to see it. I know, but I guess they can go up to an 8 seed. They win the rest of their games, and Philadelphia, they got a nice little surprise. You know, Embiid is back. We'll talk about their big win in a second, but real quick. I mean, I don't want to spend too much time talking about the Bulls, but look, they did what I kind of figured they would win. I mean, apparently, I know Atlanta's been playing well since Trae Young's been out, but it's just like whatever. But let's go to talking about the rest of some of these games throughout the week. Of course, the Clippers edged the Nuggets last night. I saw this game. The Nuggets came back. The Clippers were up big. A nice win for the Clippers without Kawhi.
Yeah, he's been missing the last couple of games for the Los Angeles Clippers. But it's nice to see Norman Powell step up. James Harden, Russell Westbrook made his return back early in the week. Of course, you still have, as I mentioned, Paul George. You still have James Harden, who's actually playing his role. We've been saying that for the last couple of months. And like we said about Denver, Lakino, it's all about them getting healthy and playing at the right time. And they've been one of the best teams in the second half of the season. I think they only have, including last night, I think 3 losses now since the All-Star break, if my math is correct. And so I know Jokic missed that a potential game winner last night. But if you're a Denver fan, you're not too worried. You're still in the top 3 teams in the Western Conference. You battling Minnesota and OKC. We'll get to them in a minute. But Denver, as long as you have home court through at least through the first couple of rounds, you should be okay.
And nice defense by PJ Tucker to kind of like helping Jokic kind of anchor his shot a little bit. So he had to take that bad shot that I think Tucker might have gotten a piece of it. But Warriors with a nice win against the Rockets. The Mavs beat Atlanta. A good game here. The Knicks beat the Kings. Now that knocks the Kings off the main spot. Now they're in the play-in spot. Jalen Brooks at 35, but some bad news for the Knicks as Julius Randle will have surgery. He's out the rest of the year. Now it looks like Mitchell Robinson might come back, but I think again, as a person who we've seen Coach Tibbs teams, and look, we've seen this movie before. The injuries can kind of come back to bite you in the butt.
Yeah, and even though Mitchell Robinson will help that Knicks, especially on their front line defensively with the rebounding, they're going to miss Julius Randle because he brings not only defense to that team, but he brings an offensive repertoire to that Knicks team. We saw that last year, even when he got injured with that ankle toward the end of last year. Julius Randle can shoot it from the outside. He's a beast inside. He can operate in the paint. And so the Knicks are going to miss that, especially come playoff time. So we'll see who they face in the first round. I think the Knicks should win that first round series, but after that, it's going to be a tough hill climb for them. I think if everybody was healthy, Lakina, I truly believe, even though you know me, I'm not a Knicks fan. It goes back to the rivalry we had with them in the 90s, being Bulls fans. But I truly believe if the Knicks were healthy, I think they would have given the Celtics a run for their money in the Eastern Conference Finals. I truly believe that. But if you're a Knicks fan, you're not going to see that this year. And the question is whether I know this is too far down the road, but what you're going to do this summer with Julius Randle. He's a free agent after next year. Do you give him the contract extension now, or do you wait till around this time next year, assuming that he's healthy for the majority of the year? And or do you go to trade for that third star this summer? There's a lot of questions on the table for this next franchise.
Could be interesting off season. Of course, they gotta clinch a officially clinch a playoff spot 1st. Whether I think they'll probably miss a play in, but you gotta wonder, like, they're number 5 right now, so they have to face Orlando. So that might be a little bit of a stretcher, but again, there's still about 7 games left, so they'll see if they can figure it out. Philadelphia had a nice week. They're 2-0, of course. Embiid's back. He was big against OKC a couple of days ago. His first game back. Did pretty well yesterday. They held off Miami. Tyrese Maxey had 37 points, which is a season high for him. And I think like the Sixers starting to figure things out, it looks like.
Yes, we talked about before, other role players had to step up outside of Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris, Nicholas Batum, and others. But you're going to see those guys go back into their natural roles since Embiid is back in that lineup now. Hopefully they can get some type of chemistry going, because those players I mentioned haven't played with Embiid since his injury in late January. So hopefully they can get a couple of games under their belt, since we have less, I believe, 2 weeks left in this regular season. And so hopefully you can get some type of momentum going into the playoffs, because assuming that they're in that playing tournament is going to be tough for them. But hopefully you can get some type of momentum going into the playoff season.
That's all you can ask for, I guess. If you're Philadelphia, you're still right there in the kind of the thick of it. So we'll see what happens there. Milwaukee, not a good week. They lose to Memphis. If you're, look, Adrian Griffin is not the kind of guy that does that. He's too classy for it. But I'm sure folks I think they've only won like 11 games since Doc has taken over. So 11 or 12, I think. So, just another loss here. And unfortunately, Milwaukee, I hope they try to figure it out these next couple of weeks before the playoffs start. But I'm not liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, as we talked about before, Lakita, let's be honest here. Damian Lillard missed the last couple of games as well. So that obviously that doesn't help. But we talked about it when Doc was hired officially at the All-Star break. Things weren't going to turn around quickly, but if you create a momentum swing going into the playoffs, playing defensively, which they've been doing in parts throughout the last couple of weeks, they've been playing a little bit better defensively, but but it's been times that they've just been beaten badly. So hopefully, if you're Milwaukee, you can stay healthy and get Chris Middleton back involved. I know he's been back for the last couple of weeks, but have him stay healthy, have him contribute more offensively. And hopefully Damian can get his head right before the playoffs. I think they'll be okay, but they still got to be more consistent on the defensive end.
They also lost to the Wizards. Talking about the Bucks, so now the Bulls losing to the Bulls losing him. That doesn't feel so bad. So now I don't feel so bad. But the Clippers got, like I said, with a nice bounce back win after losing on Tuesday to the Kings. Devontae Sabonis, was huge in the game. Had 22 points. I think like 11 or 12 assists or something like that. So look, I think the Clippers, you really needed that win against Denver last night. Not really too big of note here. I know the Lakers, they did pretty well finishing up their East Coast road trip. They beat the Raptors. They had to held off in their last game against the Wizards. So you wonder, could the Lakers be a tough out in that play-in?
I think they can. Hopefully they can get up to number 7 or number 8. I don't know if they'll have enough games to do that, but the Lakers are coming on right now. You mentioned LeBron and Anthony Davis. They're doing that thing, but they need help. As Austin Reeves has been struggling this year. He needs to step up. D'Angelo Russell has cooled off a bit. He needs to turn around. Rui Hachimura, as one sportscaster in LA calls him the Japanese Jordan. He's been playing very well. So hopefully if you can get Jared Vanderbilt and or Gabe Vincent back before the playoffs, that'll be a huge help to this Lakers team. Because let's be honest here, they will not be favored on the paper, assuming they get in as the 7th or 8th seed come playoff time. But if they face Oklahoma City, I think they do have a shot only because of their experience. But on paper, Oklahoma City could wipe the floor with them. Now, would you give them a shot if they had to face Minnesota? I don't think so. That's just me. I know Karl Anthony Towns is out right now, but I still wouldn't give the Lakers. Maybe the Lakers may have a slight shot on paper, but Minnesota is one of the best, well-coached defensive teams in the league. And if they had to face the Lakers in the playoffs, I would give a slight edge to Minnesota, even without Karl Anthony Towns right now.
Boston with a nice win over OKC. Kristaps Porzingis had 27 points for them in that game on Wednesday. Going into Tuesday's games really quick. Like I said, I talked about the Kings over the Clippers. We talked about the Bucks losing to the Wizards. Of course, Miami with a nice win against the Knicks. Terry Rozier had 34 points. To me, I think if Miami wants to go far in the playoffs, I think he's going to be the key because we know Jimmy Butler is still kind of up and down with with exhaustion and some of the injuries. So they're really going to need Rozier and some other supporting players to step up for the Heat.
And then got to learn how to shoot better from the outside. Remember last year, next to the Chicago Bulls, the Miami Heat were the second worst shooting team in the NBA from three-point range percentage-wise. Of course, they got hot in the playoffs and carried that on to the finals before bowing out to Denver. So it's all about finding that third scorer. Like I say, Scary Terry Rozier looks like he's starting to come on, but you look at some of the other guys like Tara Harrell and Duncan Robinson to help out Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. Those two players I'm focusing on again like a year ago. See if they can step that game up come playoff time.
Anything else before we go to this weekend's games?
Ooh, I want to give a shout out. You mentioned earlier to the Orlando Magic. I saw their some of their game the other night at New Orleans against the Pelicans. Nice win by the Orlando Magic. If they play the Knicks, I think it's going to be a sneaky good series. And you're talking about Franz Wagner, Markelle Fultz, of course, Jalen Green, and Greg Anthony's son, Cole Anthony. They have a bunch of young talent down there. I like the way they play. And I saw them against New Orleans. And I've been talking about New Orleans for the last few weeks on this show. And the Clippers, even though that was a huge win last night, they better get home. I'm talking about the Clippers. They better get home court advantage whether they play New Orleans or Sacramento, because if they play New Orleans and not have the home court advantage, is going to be trouble for them. But going back to Orlando, I think you mentioned them matching up potentially with the Knicks in the first round. That could be a sneaky good series, especially with the Knicks injury issues going into the second season.
They may have a shot, especially if Mitchell Robinson can't get it going. Of course, remember he hasn't played in like 3 months, so that could be an issue. He does get cleared to play. So we'll be interested to see what happens with that. Now going to this weekend's games, of course, tonight, Friday, you got Orlando and Charlotte. Got OKC and Indiana. Take the over on that one, I guess.
Yes.
Portland over Washington. Sacramento and Boston. That's gonna be the first game of the NBA TV doubleheader. Remember, no doubleheader on ESPN because of the women's Final Four. So these games, the doubleheader is now on NBA TV this week, this Friday anyway. Of course, we got the Knicks and the Bulls. That should be interesting. And Miami, yeah, right. And that should be interesting for various reasons. They get them here, so I guess that should help the Bulls a little bit. They've had a couple of games off, so maybe they'll come out firing. And you got the Heat and Houston at 7:00.
Yeah, finish out the rest of tonight's schedule. Detroit will take on Memphis. Congratulations to that guy. I forget his name. He scored 50 points off the bench for the Pistons the other night. We know it's been a tough go-around for Monty Williams and his crew this year. So they'll continue. 13-63 are the Pistons. They'll take on Memphis tonight, another injury-riddled team. That's at 7:00. The rest of the schedule looks like this. Toronto's at Milwaukee. San Antonio at New Orleans. The Warriors and the Mavericks will do battle in Texas tonight. Minnesota at Phoenix. That's the second game of that NBA TV doubleheader tonight. That's at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. Wrapping up the Friday night schedule is Utah at the Clippers. So the Clippers are on the back-to-back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they look. Hopefully, maybe Kawhi will play tonight, so we'll see there. Saturday's games tomorrow. You got an early matinee here. Of course, I think the Kings are playing, so that's why I get this early game. The Cavs, they continue their West Coast trip against the Lakers at 2:30. Detroit and Brooklyn at 6. You got Philadelphia and Memphis at 7. And you got Atlanta and Denver. Could be a good matchup the way that Atlanta's been playing lately at 8:00.
All right, your Sunday schedule looks like this. Houston's at Dallas at 2:30. That's an afternoon game on NBA TV. You have Cleveland at Los Angeles to take on the Clippers. We'll see if Donovan Mitchell plays at either of those games because he missed their last game early this week at Utah, even though Cleveland won that one. Finish out the rest of the Sunday schedule. Miami's at Indiana. Portland's at Boston. OKC, the Thunder there at Charlotte, and the Bulls will play the Magic. Ooh, boy, the Bulls always had trouble with Orlando, especially lately. We have the Wizards at the Raptors, New Orleans at Phoenix, and the nightcap on NBA TV, the Knicks at Milwaukee. The rest of the schedule: Philadelphia at San Antonio, Sacramento at Brooklyn, the Jazz at the Warriors, and the Timberwolves will visit the Los Angeles Lakers. That's the triple header nightcap on NBA TV for Sunday. And that's your schedule for the National Basketball Association for this weekend.
It was Second City Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakeem McGee sitting around with you. On Wednesdays, keeping up with the Wednesday happened on Wednesday. A big trade came down the pike in the NFL. Of course, Stephon Diggs. You want to say Debo like okay, but he got traded from the Bills to Houston, and they swap picks. And I thought it was an April 2nd joke, I guess, but apparently, if you listen to the folks in Buffalo, I listened to some of the other sports radio stations there. Apparently, he wore out his welcome there, and he's the most productive wide receiver. So unfortunately, the Buffalo just couldn't get over the hump and get to the promised land. So I guess a new scenery is in order for Mr. Diggs, and now they've got a really solid offense down there in Houston.
Yes, here I'll take the Buffalo side first. For Buffalo, they're going through salary cap hell right now, and like you said, they're one of many teams in the AFC. They're trying to get over that hump past Kansas City. They had their shot the last couple years, and they haven't been able to get it done. Hopefully, this will change their philosophy in terms of protecting Josh Allen, and we'll see if they can draft a stud wide receiver in the NFL draft. We'll see what happens with Buffalo on that front. Now, on the Houston side, shout out to their management for taking going for it early. I know CJ Stroud had a good rookie year. In one offensive rookie year and won a playoff game. I know some people would say, "Oh, Houston's taking a jump too soon. You don't know, blah blah blah." The heck with that. Go for it. And plus, you know why they're going for it, Lakina? CJ Stroud's in his rookie contract. You don't have to worry about picking him a fifth-year option for the next 3 years, I believe. So 3 to 4 years. So you're good right there. And plus, you're still under the salary cap. And I think Buffalo still got to pay part of Stephon's salary. So you remember their running game, former Buffalo Bill Devin Singletary. He had a good year last year. And don't forget about Tank Dell, who had a good rookie year last year before he went out with that late season injury. So the Houston Texans, I give them credit for going for it. The reason why they go for some of those big players because they're still under the salary cap. Don't forget they picked up Danielle Hunter from the Minnesota Vikings as well. Their defense was already good. Now it's solid.
Yeah, and I think that could be the key here if they want to kind of be at that top tier. So, but I'm sure they know that they're no longer they kind of may have taken the jump a little too quickly, but they still got the pieces there. So, like you said, they take that Tank Dell injury kind of came back to bite him in that playoff game against Baltimore. So we'll see if he can make that next step. I mean, again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens because the Jaguars made some interesting moves there. We'll talk more about that as the months go on before the season starts, but I really like the move that they've done. They got Joe Mixon. They've got, like you said, they got a solid defense, coming in. So I'm liking what I'm seeing for Houston. So we'll see if they can make that next step.
Yeah, now you going up to the big leagues now. You competing to see you can beat Kansas City. You can beat Baltimore. Can you beat Cincinnati? A healthy Joe Burrow is supposed to be back with them next year. So Houston's taking another step and going into the top contenders. And I love it, to be honest with you. You mentioned Jacksonville. They're going to get past Houston now. It's truly going to be an AFC South division race. So I know Tennessee's going through it right now. Let's not forget about Indianapolis. They were a heartbeat away for going to the playoffs last year as well. So the AFC South, we talked about Lakina being a mixed bag last year. We don't know what Tennessee is going to do yet, but I know they picked up Tony Pollard. But outside of Tennessee, those other three teams that I mentioned, it's really going to be a dogfight.
It could be one of the divisions to watch this coming season. So looking forward to that. We'll see what happens. There is Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Lakeem McGee, Steve Brown with you. I want to give a couple of shout outs to Mr. Kasai Tamanaga. Of course, the soon to be former guard from Nebraska. He not only won the men's 3-point shooting, but he actually beat Sarah Siciliano, I should say, from Indiana to take home the battle of the sexes. And of course, he did the steal. Steph is one of his biggest inspirations, so he did the turnaround threes to clinch both titles. So that was really cool. Like I said, the men's and women's 3-point shooting, and that whole contest has actually been grow a lot over the years. Jack Goki led a group the first team ball where they had to shoot threes, and of course, his group ended up winning it. Of course, the hero from Oakland. So I forgot. I think it was a Grand Canyon. I'll look up his name real quick. A Grand Canyon guy. A lot of people were a little bit miffed because Bryce Drew was one of the judges for the slam dunk. But a really solid 3-point shooting. That's one of the best. If you didn't watch, I'm sure they're going to repeat over the weekend. So make sure you guys check that out.
I'll definitely have to look for it on the replay, or I'm sure they'll have some clips here on YouTube. So I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. What else? Some tough news from the NFL Network. Will Silva, Andrew Siciliano, Melissa Stark, and I forgot there was another one. Oh, James Palmer were let go by the network yesterday, and Andrew Siciliano has been a stalwart of the network forever, and it's a little gonna be tough not hearing him or not seeing him. Of course, Melissa Stark, she still has that job over being NBC Sunday Night Football telecast. She'll probably be doing more stuff too for the Olympic coverage coming up this summer. Will Silva, of course, ES former Sports Center anchor, and James Palmer. I mean, I'm sure all four of them will get rehired at other places, but a tough go at it for the NFL Network and NFL media.
Yeah, like I said, the landscape of media is changing by the day, Lakina. And like I said, this is a tough part of the business we all have to deal with. And so, like I said, good luck to those folks. And I'm sure they're great folks, and they'll find work. I remember Andrew Siciliano. Remember, Lakina, he's got his start here in Chicago on the old WMAQ 670 before it became 670 The Score. He was on the late Chet Kopic show, the Sports Huddle. So I remember him before he moved on. Talking about Andrew moved on to at that time the newly Fox Sports Radio, and then of course he got hired by NFL Network for working there. So yeah, and plus he did the Red Zone version for Direct TV. So. He's like you said, he's been one of the OGs at NFL Network for a long time. So I'm sure he's going to find work somewhere, or he can create his own platform with his own podcast or what have you. So I see him doing something prior to the start of this upcoming NFL season.
Absolutely. And we got some more time. Anything else you want to talk about, Sid?
Oh, yes. The Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams had dinner up in Lake Forest the other day. He had some celebrities attending his dinner. Jamie Foxx. And this is definitely a generational thing, but I heard this guy's name before, but you younger folks know him more than we do. Quavo from the hip hop group The Migos was at the dinner. And Lakina, we all know that Caleb Williams, unless Ryan Pauls is definitely, if he's definitely pulling the wool off our eyes, he's definitely probably the best puppet master of all time. But in all seriousness, Caleb Williams was going to be the #1 pick for the Chicago Bears, whether we like it or not. And the dinner, for what I read, was successful. Lakina, I'm not worried about the #1 pick because that's already taken care of one way or the other. But there's been talk about New England. They're kind of undecided who are they going to take at quarterback because the #2 pick is owned by the Washington Commanders. So Gerard Mayo and crew, the new head coach, they still have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be, I think after #1, I think everything else is kind of still a question mark. I've seen Roma Duze, he might go down a couple of spots, maybe for the Bears to take him. Jaden Daniels, another name that's being thrown around perhaps me, but I think I think he's been connected to New England, but I know that Washington likes him. I know Cliff Kingsbury, who's the OC, now the new OC there with the Commanders, really likes him. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like, we got 2.5 more weeks of this, Sid. Yay.
I know.
So, any windows and all that stuff, we're going to hear all types of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens before, the Motor City hosts the draft coming up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, we'll get more into this on Monday, but I was reading Adam Johnson's column earlier today from The Athletic. For those of you that haven't subscribed to Athletic, please subscribe. They have great content. And he had his top 5 pass catchers and pass rushers for the Bears to consider. I'll go through them real quick. Like I said, we'll take a deeper dive with our guest on Monday. But he has Adam Johnson at Athletic, who covers the Bears for them. His top 5 pass catchers, Marvin Harrison Jr. out of Ohio State. He's going to Arizona at #4. I don't see him moving out of that spot. His next 4 pass catchers, Malik Neighbors of LSU, Rome Odunze from Washington, Brian Thomas from LSU, and, of course, Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia.
I've been hearing Bowers' name a lot. the Bears already have like what, like about a dozen tight ends. So yeah, sure, why not? Why not add another one? But I think look, if Adunze's there, I think he'll at 9. I think Poles will take him. Neighbors, yeah, the Neighbors. I think he'll probably be gone by the time we get to 9. I've so it's gonna be interesting. But yeah, I mean we're gonna hear all types of weird stuff. We're gonna see all these kinds of mock drafts, and it's just it's a pain in the tuchus.
Okay.
But you know.
Yeah. In the top 5 offensive linemen, according to Adam Johnson, Athletic, Joel Alt of Notre Dame, Olu Fashanu for Penn State, Talise Fuga for Oregon State, Amarius Mims from Georgia, and J.C. Latham for Alabama.
Fanaga's name I've been hearing a lot lately. I know at the workouts over there at Corvallis, he actually jumped off the page. And look, the Bears still need an old lineman. I mean, there's really no.
They need a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, at least. And look, I know they've made a little bit moves here and there, but they really need someone to pick that up. And you look, Fuaga is one of the best. I think he's like all Pac-12. I think he was all Pac-12 this past season. His stock has definitely risen for that as well. It's gonna be interesting to see what to do, especially with edge. I know that some names have thrown around. I know Dallas Turner from Alabama. His names are thrown around. Also, Jared Verse at Florida State. Another name is being floated around as well. So, like I said, it's really going to be interesting to see what the other teams do after 1. After 1, because I've seen some mocks where Dunze might fall to 10. Or look, I've seen some people say that maybe the Bears will just go out of the top, get out of there, and perhaps maybe get some more draft capital. Who knows? But
yeah.
A lot. I'm sure we're going to be hearing a lot. I know JJ McCarthy's names perhaps maybe being thrown around, perhaps going to Minnesota.
I was going to ask you about that, Lakina. Of course, I've been Jim Harbaugh, who coached him for the past 3 years, has been praising him, and it's no surprise. Like I said, he coached him for the past 3 years. But I get the sense, and remember this time last year, Lakina, we didn't hear that much about this quarterback until the last couple of weeks. He didn't get drafted as high as he thought. His name is Will Levis. It's the same scenario in a sense right here this year with J.J. McCarthy. Yeah. And I was listening to a podcast earlier today before we broadcasted, and this host quoted one anonymous GM, and this anonymous GM said that J.J. McCarthy will be drafted within the top 5. I was like, really?
I don't think so.
Really? I don't think so either.
Yeah, we're going to be
some dumb teams out there, but I don't see them making that kind of mistake. Not me.
Yeah, I mean, was this the same guy that said, well, it was going to go to the top 5 and we saw what happened? So,
right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he's very accomplished. I just don't see him going to the top 5. I don't see Los Angeles Chargers taking him. I think, look, they need O-line help to help protect Justin Herbert, especially now that most of his guys are gone. So,
they need a running back and another wide receiver to go with Quentin Johnson.
Maybe another tight end as well. So, yeah, they got a lot to build. They need a little more build-up box for the Chargers. I think they have other issues to worry about besides quarterback, but what do I know?
Yeah. And the other pass rushers, as you mentioned, Lakina, of course, I saw in Adam Johnson's article in The Athletic. Please check it out if you haven't. But the other pass rushers for the Bears to consider, besides Dallas Turner, Latu from UCLA. Hopefully I did not mispronounce his name.
Latu, I think that's how you say his name.
Okay, from UCLA, I should say. Byron Murphy out of Texas. He's a defensive tackle. And, of course, Darius Robinson out of Missouri.
Yeah, I really like Murphy. Murphy, I think, is probably one of those I think he won one of the national awards for top defender, I believe. So, yeah, I think, I think a lot of teams need a lot of needs. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to be the priorities for some of these teams. Do they perhaps maybe wait a little bit? I can't see. I think after Williams, I think. Look, I know Jaden Daniels. I know his name is being flown around there at various spots, and there's still a lot to be decided. Like I said, and it's going to be interesting to see what these teams do. We always see like a surprise or two in the draft, especially in the early rounds. So you think that they're going to one position, and they go to something completely different. So it's going to be interesting to know all the mock drafts. I think I saw one mock draft that has like a Doomsday, like a 12, which I don't think it's gonna go down that far, but
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but you know how mock drafts are. We're going to be seeing like more than a few more of these before the draft in 2 weeks. But
But if you Commissioner Roger Goodell in the NFL, you'll love it because it gives something and someone to talk about between now and April 24th.
That's true. So yeah, well, we'll see what happens there. But yeah, so yeah, it's a lot of pieces might move. We may see another blockbuster trade. So yeah, it should be interesting these next couple of weeks.
Yep. Anything else before we close out, young lady?
You want to do our picks for the men's and women's Final Four real quick?
Oh yes, of course. For the women's first, I'm going with South Carolina over NC State. That's easy. The second game, I think UConn is slightly the better team, but I think Caitlin Clark's on another level. She's on the mission, so I'm going with Iowa in the second game. For the men's game, I'm going with the favorites. Even though I'm cheering as hard as hell for NC State, I'm going with Purdue, and I think UConn rolls over in that second game. They should easily have an easy win in their game in a blowout.
Yeah, I think
over Alabama.
Yeah, also, I got South Carolina and UConn. South Carolina, they're on a mission too. People forget that it was because of Iowa that I think they only had one loss last year, and it was Caitlin Clark that kind of derailed that. So they're on a mission too, and they're undefeated. Not getting a lot of love from the national pundits, so I think they're going to feed off that. And I know Coach is going to tell our ladies, look, they're not talking about y'all, so they may use that as motivation, and I think they might end up winning another title on Sunday for the women and the men. I say Purdue and UConn. I'm going with the favorites too. I think if you're TBS, you want that. No shade to NC State and Alabama. The fact that NC State, their great story. Alabama, they came with a brand new everything. They were able to get to the Final Four, being the number one seed, Houston to do it. And I think it's gonna be UConn and Purdue for the national championship Monday, and we'll talk. Regardless, we're gonna talk about it more on Monday.
And shout out to ESPN. I know the two games for the women's side is on ESPN tonight, but shout out to ESPN for putting the title game on Sunday, middle of Sunday afternoon on ABC. They're cheering hard as hell for Caitlin Clark to win tonight. So I think we'll be watching South Carolina and Iowa on Sunday. So Sunday's women's national championship game will be on Sunday, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time on ABC. So everybody can see it.
Right, and remember too, the men's Final Four and national championship game are both on TBS this year as part of their new deal with CBS and Warner Bros. Discovery. So this year it's on TBS. So if you're a cord cutter, TBS is very available on some of the streaming platforms as well. So it's all right there.
Yep. All right, Missy, close us out.
You find Akina McGee on the Twitter, X, Akina Score again, the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sydney Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG is SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are at War Media Podcast, WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more time, as Lakina would say, catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
All right, we also want to thank Mike Chen for USA Today Sports. Of course, he covers the Buckeyes and the Irish. Of course, you can read his stuff on Mike F. Chen on his Twitter, and of course, all his great work is right there. And of course, you can Sports Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV.
And we will provide.
So enjoy all the great sports. Of course, you got the men's and women's Final Four this weekend. Of course, you got baseball in full swing. Golf, of course, you got one more golf tournament before the Masters. And I think that's about it for the main stuff. Of course, the NHL they're winding down their season as well. So we'll talk a little bit about that on Monday.
One hell of a fight the other night between the Rangers and Devils. Oh boy!
Mm-hmm. And the TNT guys they were. if you saw Henrik Lundqvist's face, also Anson Carter's face in the TNT studio. Yeah, those looks were priceless right there. We'll talk more about that on Monday, but even still, with that said, stay warm out there. I know it's cold in a lot of spots around the country. It's supposed to be April, but enjoy the sports. For Sid, I'm Lakina. Stay safe out there. This has been Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago, and we'll see you Monday.
Shohei the money, holla.